I wanted to have a more personal and open conversation in this video. And the reason why I'm making this video is for the longest time when I was starting this whole filmmaking career and when I would go on YouTube or really anywhere else, no one seemed to be having an open conversation or talk about really what this whole career is like. So this is kind of the video I wish I had. So I scripted it out here so I don't miss a point. But if you've never watched my other videos, basically just a quick backstory. I went to film school. I graduated back in 2007 and I started freelancing, and I did that for about 7 years. Then to this day, I run a video production company. So I've been in this business for about 15 years or so. And one of the early opportunities that I got was this feature film, pretty decent budget feature film around 5 years into my career. And at that time, I remember just being so excited thinking, wow, I made it. I thought it would not happen for me, at least the filmmaking, traditional filmmaking route. And when I started working on that film, it was like an entirely different experience, because even though I knew what I needed to know to work on that film, and I was hired as a director of photography, which I think was a little too early for me with the level of experience I had for the type of movie that it was. But even though I knew everything from filmmaking school, I still hadn't really applied all that much in the last 5 years because I was working on corporate, commercial, really anything I could get my hands on, even a couple of years of shooting weddings, because I had to figure out how to pay the bills after film school, and I wasn't finding opportunities where I could shoot a movie before this one where I was getting paid to actually shoot a movie, right? So even though the film itself went relatively well, it was far more physically and mentally challenging than I had anticipated. But the biggest problem I had when working on a film set was, at this time I had my son. I had my son at a pretty early age. And one of the main focus I had at the time, and obviously still to this day, was just to make sure I leave plenty of time in the week, to spend time with him. And that was obviously my main priority. But with the film shoot, what typically ends up happening, and this is true with everyone that works in the profession that I still personally know to this day, sometimes the days are like 14 to 16 hours if you include the commute to set. Well, that leaves you barely enough time to sleep and eat, right? So then you won't have absolutely no personal time. So that's exactly what ended up happening for me, right? I would just go to set, do the shoot, drive home, go to sleep. And typically, these take up sometimes a month, 2-3 months of your life. And then after I wrapped this film, I got extremely sick because it was just the rush I had through the whole process that really hit me afterwards. I think I was sick for like weeks after this happened. And knowing that I really care more about family, I just knew I couldn't do this every few months, even if I got the next opportunity, which in this case, you always have to take the next opportunity because the producer or whoever brought you onto the first one, that's their core team, right? They expect you to do everything that comes after that. And then that's your life, right? This is what I thought I wanted when I went to film school. But as soon as I had a real world filmmaking experience, making an actual narrative film, a scripted narrative film, I realized if I chose that path, I don't know if I could have the family life that I wanted to have. And that really made me super depressed. But in the meantime, I did have another opportunity that I've been working on even longer than that. That was a documentary film I had started back in like 08, 09, where I was following a deaf family. And with that film, even though it wasn't the narrative route, I still thought this could give me the opportunity to get to the next level, to be a more traditional filmmaker. But again, the problem with that was I would just hustle all the time throughout the week just to make enough money to barely pay the bills, but more importantly, invest into the documentary, because the documentary wasn't paying me anything in the early stages. Later, I raised money on Kickstarter after I figured some other stuff out. But in the early stages, I would ask for free help and I would invest my money from freelancing, meaning shooting whatever came on my plate. But with that combination of that, there was just so many times where I just couldn't pay rent. I couldn't pay my bills. I would get bank overdraft fees. And pretty much because of all that, most of the time I would put my documentary, which was my ultimate passion project, pretty much the thing I'm proud of the most to this day, I would put it on hold. And then because of that, it took me like 7-8 years to finish a movie that maybe should have taken me like 3 years. So that really held me back for a long time because I just couldn't afford to invest into my own project. So every single week, I would just get more depressed and I would question everything, especially when I couldn't pay the bills. Why was I doing this? I couldn't figure out why I was doing this. And the biggest problem I had too was I just didn't know where my next job was coming from, right? If any of you have ever freelanced, it's typically because somebody calls you through word of mouth or referral or something like that, or you post on some job site and you're competing with like 100 people and then you may get a job, but you have no idea every time you go on a shoot if it's your last shoot. That feeling for like 6-7 years just never went away. I couldn't get to a point where I felt like, okay, this is my job, this is what I'm doing. And at the same time, when I was looking at other freelancers like me, I was like, okay, maybe I'm missing something here. Well, they were doing the exact same thing. They were in the exact same boat. They had the same exact struggles. Everyone I went to film school with, everyone I met as a freelancer. And most importantly, I would look at people that have been doing it a long time. And I rarely would find people that were in the game for like 30, 40 years. But when I even saw those people, they were also burned out. They also were in the same shoes. So I was like, wait, that's my future. That's the one thing I learned in life is if you're doing something, look at someone that's been doing it a long time and see where they're at. See if they're happy, see if they're in a position where you want to be in 20, 30 years, right? So that kind of gave me a good insight into this whole thing. And even though I was like 5 years out of college, I was like, well, this is probably my same route. I'm already experiencing it. So I pretty much wanted to quit, but I just thought no one would hire me. What else would I even do? I went to film school. No one that goes to film school is going to be able to get some random other job, right, in a different profession. I didn't know anything else. I know how to make videos at that time. So I started looking around a little bit more to try to kind of find a way out of this because I knew this was just going to break me at some point. But what I noticed is the people that were doing the best were the people that were hiring me through their own production company. They had built even smaller production companies to larger ones, but they were the owner of the production company. A lot of them would still come on the shoots. A lot of them would hire themselves into the shoot as the cinematographer or the director or the producer, but they ran the company too. And I noticed those people were the happiest people I met, and they were the most successful people I met. So when I was looking at the freelancers that weren't in that position, and I was looking at the company owners, I was like, okay, that's got to be the route I got to take. It's very clear to me. If I'm looking at the people in the industry, I already tried the filmmaking route. The documentary route is not really paying the bills, right? It's just taking money out of my pocket to even get to the point where I could finish it. So that's the route I took. And that realization, with combination of lots of other things that really went wrong that caused me to make that transition, happened in a period of 6 months between 2012 and the beginning of 2013. And through a 6-month transition, I was able to go from struggling through this whole process to making 6 figures in profit running my own video production company. Now that was another challenging 6 months, right? But it was far less challenging, I think, than the 6-7 years I had before that, just working as a freelancer. Now, I laser focused in marketing and client acquisition, something that filmmakers had no idea what to do about and didn't take any time going after. Every conversation I had on set was about what camera they were buying next, what lens they were buying next, if this new lighting kit was going to make a difference. And none of that honestly makes any difference unless you're a freelancer and you're trying to level up your skills as a freelancer. But as a video production company, I realized that's not going to give me a client. It doesn't matter if I have a $50,000 Red or if I have a $1,000 Canon, right? How am I going to convince the client that they should hire me because I have a camera? A lot of people are going to be able to rent that same camera, right? For $500-$600. I'm not going to be able to compete off just owning a ton of gear. So I didn't buy gear. I invested money into marketing, into customer acquisition. I did pay a couple of consultants to help me. That didn't work out, but then I did invest into a little bit of education there. I invested into different funnels as far as advertising, search engine optimization. And then it started to click for me. But it did take a lot of focus to learn something that I had nothing or no experience in, which was marketing and then sales. But once it clicked, what ended up happening is as soon as I started getting clients from a $3,000 client to a $8,000, $13,000, all the way up to an 80,000 client I got in that 6 period of time by leveling up through this marketing. What ended up happening is I was able to buy the gear as I would get the project. So I would get the project, I would buy the gear that was required to do that project, and I would own it. Now it would become more profitable, and I kept that way. And sometimes I would just rent out the gear. If I got a $3,000 project, I didn't go buy a $3,000 camera or lens. I would just rent it and I would just level up. Now I had some basic cameras and lighting and things like that to get me through those smaller jobs anyway, because I was freelancing for a while. But that's how I acquired a lot of gear through that year that helped me through the rest of my career in the last 9-10 years. Now, more specific on the marketing plan and exactly how I laid that out, the picking a niche, how to do advertising and things like that, I've covered in several videos, and I'm making new videos on this channel. That's really, my channel is intended more for the tactical ways to acquiring clients for filmmakers. But my point with this video was, I know because there was a lot of people that felt the exact same way when I was coming up. I know there's gotta be people that are in the same shoes. And because no one in the world of filmmaking will have this type of conversation, I was hoping, hopefully someone understands that this is not an abnormal situation to be in and could somehow just push through that period of struggle. And the video production company creation, that's the solution that worked for me. I'm not saying that's for everyone, but really just finding some sort of system where you could have control over what comes next. You could have control on acquiring customer. You could have control of where your next paycheck is coming from. So this feeling of always feeling like it might all be over goes away. That feeling is something that really made me depressed because I never knew where the next job was coming from. That's the system that worked for me. Again, it might not work for you, and it might not even be a good fit for you. That's not the point of this video. The point of this video is help you not feel discouraged if you feel like you're in the same shoes. And it's really something that was personal to me. I'm obviously really passionate about it to this day. Now, I still think it takes a lot of work ethic. It takes a lot of stubbornness to get through the process. But I think those really hard years, those 7 hard years that I had to go through, taught me those things. So then the rest of my career became much, much easier once I figured out actually how does the business side of filmmaking work. So I hope this story could help a few people that are going through this right now. I do post videos like this every single week on this channel, and I hope to catch you next time. Thanks for watching.